off. And at the moment, that is the path that we are clearly on. And if we do not change course, then we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult problem.
Cases are increasing, hospitalisations are following, deaths unfortunately will follow that, and there is the potential for this to move very fast.
In Bolton, where tougher restrictions have been in place for the past 2 weeks, people are complaining of continued uncertainty.
People are quite scared to, go out.
We're given so much contradictory information. I'm now at the point where I don't know what to think.
Officials have raised the level of alert from 3 to 4. And with the cases on the rise, expect more instructions from the Prime Minister tomorrow.
And we'll have more on the Chief Scientist's warning and their talk of a 6-month period of challenges ahead. Also tonight, more than 100 sports bodies write to the Prime Minister calling for an emergency sports recovery fund in the wake of the pandemic. The inquiry into the Manchester Arena bombing hears from more families of those killed in the attack in 2017. And a look at the campaign battle online, with conspiracy theories aplenty in the US presidential contest.
And coming up in sport on BBC News,
Good evening. Without further action to limit the spread of coronavirus, there could be 50,000 new cases every day in the UK by mid-October. That's according to the government's chief scientists. Sir Patrick Vallance and Professor Chris Whitty say all 4 nations of the UK now face a tipping point, and they stress the vital importance of respecting the health guidelines at all times. Officials have recommended, as Laura was saying, that the COVID alert level should be raised to 4, which means that the transmission rate is high or is rising exponentially. The Prime Minister will chair a meeting of COBRA, the Emergency Committee, tomorrow morning, before making a statement to the House of Commons, when he's expected to outline these new restrictions. Our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, has the latest.
No one wants to see another huge wave of COVID cases in hospital, with NHS staff working round the clock in PPE. But the government's key advisers on the pandemic delivered a sombre warning. Although hospital cases are low now compared to April, that could all change.
If we don't do enough, the virus will take off. And at the moment, that is the path that we are clearly on. And if we do not change course, then we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult problem.
It's thought the epidemic is doubling in size in the UK every week. Now, if that was to happen for the next 4 weeks, we could have nearly 50,000 cases per day. Now, this wasn't a prediction from government scientists, and it doesn't take into account measures to control COVID, like the rule of 6, which only came into force a week ago. And it would still be half the estimated number of cases that we saw in early April. Government scientists are worried that we could be just a few weeks behind Spain and France, where cases have soared in recent weeks, although much of that will be among younger people who are unlikely to fall ill.
I'm feeling tired.
COVID has had a profound impact on many who survive the disease. The message today was, take action now to tackle the rise in cases or see the virus spreading again among the vulnerable, with perhaps 200 deaths a day by November.
The challenge, therefore, is to make sure that we do not enter into this exponential growth and end up with the problems that you would predict as a result of that. That requires speed, it requires action, and it requires enough in order to be able to bring that down.
If we look at admissions to hospital in England with a confirmed COVID diagnosis, they've been rising for the past couple of weeks and now stand at around 200 patients per day. If we go back to the beginning of April, though, back then up to 3,000 patients were being admitted every day. So we're still a long way off that figure. One key problem that needs sorting is the delay many have faced trying to get a swab test to find out whether they have the infection. That's a key part of knowing exactly where and how quickly the virus is spreading.
Sadly, I'm not that optimistic that we can suppress the epidemic as much as we would like. And I think we do need to start thinking about how we identify and advise and protect the most vulnerable, the people who are more likely to get severely ill.
Enjoying the freedom to eat out late while they can. The weather and the rules are set to change. The government scientists say curbing the virus will continue to be an issue for the next 6 months. It could be a long winter. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Well, as we said, the Prime Minister is expected to outline further measures tomorrow to try to limit the rise in infections. Measures he'll announce will be for England, and they might include ordering pubs to close at 10 p.m. But Downing Street says the 4 home nations have all agreed to act with the united approach as much as they possibly can. New local lockdowns were announced in South Wales today, and in Scotland, more than 1.5 million people are now living with local restrictions. Our political editor Laura Koonsberg looks ahead to the Prime Minister's statement tomorrow.
The scientists' faces show it's serious, but it's the politicians that must decide. It's behind the door where the new lines will be drawn. Nothing's final. Likely tomorrow to start with calling time earlier at the pub. After locking down, then opening up. Nerves in this huge industry about what might be next.
We need to socialise. People cannot go through another 6 months without socialising. I do not see the need for further enforcements and further restrictions in pubs whatsoever. We are the home of responsible socialising.
So the welcome back signs might be succeeded by others. Alongside a likely 10 o'clock closing time, tougher fines have already been announced for those who don't follow the rules. But it's been a dilemma to arrive at a plan. The rise in cases was clear. The way forward for ministers, not so much.
We're working right now on what further measures may be necessary, and the Prime Minister will update the House tomorrow with any more action that we need to take. This is a moment where we once again must come together to tackle this deadly disease.
This virus takes lives and it leaves many with long-term debilitating conditions. Every reasonable action must be taken to save lives, minimise harm and keep our children in school.
It's not a question of if there will be some form of new restriction, but a conversation at the top of government about exactly what, where and when. Go too far and there could be unnecessary damage to the economy, but don't go far enough and the virus could spread out of control. Ministers are adamant, though, that schools and most workplaces will stay open. This is not a return to March, when the whole country was told, stay at home. Remember, more than 10 million people are already living with tighter restrictions across the UK. A patchwork of areas with stricter rules that now includes parts of Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland too.
Implementing further measures now is very much, I hope, about controlling this virus while avoiding the need for another full